Welcome to On Mac Development, conversations and tutorials on today's latest technology in Mac software, applications, programming, and development. You can access related resources, recommended reading, special offers, and more when you visit the On Mac Development Resource Center at informit.com/MacDEV Center.
Hi, my name is Diane Daniel, and I'm here at the Voices That Matter, the iPhone Developers Conference. And I'm here with Mike Daley.
Hi.
Hi, welcome, Mike. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Mike Daley, and I'm here to do a talk at the conference on beginning iPhone game development. It's something that I've been into for quite a while now, developing games. As a hobby, it's not my day job, which is, I think, that's the unique thing that I'm going to be talking about, is that with the iPhone, it's a platform where even a hobbyist can actually start to develop games and actually get that out into the marketplace. So the key topic that I'm going to be covering is really about how do you get started doing iPhone game development when you're new to it, you're just an individual, you're not a big corporation.
Well, that's a really good question. How do you get started, especially considering the learning curve with Objective-C and Cocoa?
That's right. So there is. I mean, when I started, I sort of looked at that and thought, well, there's a lot of things to learn here. I mean, there's Objective-C, there's the Cocoa API, there's OpenGLES if you're going to go that route. So there are a lot of things out there that you do need to take on board. But there's also some great material as well. I mean, Apple produced some fantastic documentation, which certainly has helped me. There's a huge number of different forums out on the internet, which again contain lots of great information for getting you started. And just the sample apps that Apple provide as well. They're all great sources of, how do I get something onto the screen and start moving it around? And it's just those baby steps, just taking one thing at a time, getting used to certain elements like just what does Objective-C look like, and then moving on to, well, what does the Cocoa API look like, and then how do I start using it on the iPhone? Just little baby steps, and it actually can be done a lot quicker than I think people would imagine.
So are you starting with the language and framework, or?
It is, yeah. So the language and framework is really the basis you need to do anything. You need to understand the language that you're using and the frameworks available to you, so the Cocoa APIs and Cocoa Touch. Once you've started to get those basics underway, you can then start to explore the framework and just to understand what is it capable of doing. How do I interact with it? If I touch the screen, how do I register that I've touched the screen? Or how do I render things to the screen, whether it be pictures or text? So you start to just have a look and see what's available to you. And as you build up that knowledge and that confidence, you can then start to move forward to really sort of come up with your own ideas as to what kind of applications you want to develop.
Interesting. I know you have a book coming out that's going to help people with developing games.
That's right.
In the meantime, where do you start? You mentioned forums, and you also said that you're doing this in your spare time. I mean, what's that looking like?
That's
what
right.
kind of time investment are we talking about?
I'm really popular with my wife at the moment, spending a lot of time doing this stuff, because it does eat up hours. You can sit down and thinking, I'm just going to have a little look at how I do something, and suddenly 3-4 hours has gone and the evening's blown. So it does take time. You do have to sit and you do have to focus on what you're trying to do. But it is possible. I mean, I come from a development background. I've been a developer for most of my life, not on the iPhone, obviously. But those skills are useful. If you're already a developer, making the move to Objective-C and to the iPhone platform isn't a great big deal. There's so much material out there, and the similarities between Objective-C and other languages, whether it's C or maybe if you're coming from a Java background, they're enough to enable you to really get started fairly quickly.
On that note, though, I mean, I still see, out there in the Mac forums or just in general how I think people do feel sort of daunted or a little intimidated, and other people have said this is really tough stuff. So you're talking about drawing on your old skills to develop new ones.
Yeah.
Any sort of guidelines or frameworks in terms of how to do that well? What you should be thinking of as you come to this new language and framework?
Sure. I mean, I think for me, it really was started from scratch. So every developer has written a Hello World application that just prints that on the screen. And you really do have to start from those basics. If you try and jump in too far too soon, you will just get overwhelmed with the amount of information that is out there and just the capabilities of the device. You know, you'll be, it's like a kid in a candy store. It's like, what can I play with next? What's the next bit of the framework I'm going to explore? And that's great, but if you haven't got the background or the sort of the framework underneath you to support that, then it can become quite complicated. But there is a lot of good information out there. I mean, just starting with the documentation that comes from Apple with the SDK and just starting to have a look at some of their example applications, it really does just ease you into that. And again, lots of material, lots of books. I mean, if you look at the Objective-C book for people like Aaron Hilligas and stuff like that, they make similarities. They say, well, if this is how you would do something in Java, this is how you would do it in Objective-C. So, you know, there is that crossover information available to help people with a different background of a different language move over.
Very interesting. As you're learning all of that, though, like you said, you want to get out there and play, and
Sure.
I'm sure you want to be thinking of what cool stuff can I do. Anything in parallel to learning that you can, you know, sort of satisfy that desire to create the fun stuff, or, you know, work on the fun stuff while you're learning the hard stuff.
Yeah, I think certainly personally for me, even though you shouldn't really sort of jump in, I do. So I'll have a project where I'm trying to understand how I could use a new feature of the iPhone. I really need to learn it and understand it, but at the same time I just dabble, I just play around. I'll take an example application that's maybe a little more advanced than the place where I am, and I'll just play with it, and I'll just change things and just see what happens, and it could be a complete failure. But otherwise, it might actually teach me something about how that works. I think not being intimidated to just have a go and just try it out. Nothing's going to go wrong. Just play. And I think looking at the App Store and seeing what people have created, I mean, there are some amazing apps out there where people say, I sat down, I downloaded the SDK, and in 10 weeks I generated this. And it's possible. You know, this can be done.
Very cool. Speaking of the App Store, what's your favorite?
I think at the moment, Cannabolt is my favourite. I just love the whole idea of the game, and I think they've just captured the essence of the iPhone. You know, very simple, extremely addictive. You know, you can pick it up, put it down, and you know, I think that's a really, really great game.
Interesting. And just in terms of how many applications are out there, you know, someone else was talking about, is the iPhone app brush over, or, I mean, do you still think there's a lot of possibility for people to be learning all of this?
Right.
Get their, you know, make their mark.
I think that there is massive potential still. I think we may have seen the sort of the rush to just get the 99 cents app out and just sort of everybody was talking about the race for the bottom, you know, just go for the sort of the cheapest app just to get massive volume. And I think we're starting to see that finish now. Certainly when I look at the App Store and look through the game side of things, you're seeing that the price of games are actually starting to increase because people are seeing that there's value and they're actually using that to sort of innovate. And I think we've got a lot more innovation to come.
Interesting. I know we're getting close to running out of time here, so I'm just curious. So here you are at this conference, and you know the energy here is just crazy.
Right.
There's a lot of buzz, and I know, you know, developers can be in their quote little cave.
Yeah.
What have you learned, you know, being here around a lot of other developers, or what surprised you, or what have you liked the most?
I think it's just that excitement, that enthusiasm, and that's what does it for me. When I started writing games back in the 80s, you know, somebody could, on their own, sit down and write a computer game and then get it published. It was possible for that to be done by one person. And the iPhone has done the same as it did to me in the 80s. I suddenly feel that that's possible again. Mm-hmm. One person can create an entire game, their own idea, their own creation, and get it out there to a really huge audience. And I think that excitement is what's driving it. It's not necessarily the money every time. I think it's just the fact that you can innovate. You can come up with your own idea and just get it out there to a big audience.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for podcasting with us. Remember to visit the On Mac Dev Resource Center, where you can access recommended reading, special offers, and more at informit.com/MacDevCenter. Be sure you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a single episode. Brought to you by Inform IT, the trusted technology learning source.